I sprinted out of the house and I went home and I picked up a knife and I went into my room and I sat there and just contemplated of what I should do.
I was just tired of like having to get up and live life, a life that I didn't want to live.
I was hurting. I was hurting more than I ever had.
The suicide rate's increasing, but we're not making progress on stigma. So it needs to be okay to be depressed and to get treatment for that so it doesn't escalate to where suicide is their answer.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ashley Blackstone.
And I'm Dean Stevens. For the next hour, we will talk solely about mental illness. You will hear stories and hear from those directly impacted.
Our goal is to bring hope and awareness. And if just one person reaches out and gets the help they need, well, then this would be more than worth it. An ABC News 4 analysis shows suicides in the Tri-County area have risen 30% since 2011.
In Berkeley County alone, that number has doubled this past month. A 17-year-old from the upstate drove to Charleston, took his life by jumping off the bridge. Tonight, we dedicate our newscast to him and to all the others who have lost their lives to mental illness and those who are struggling right now.
Tonight, we bring you Beneath the Surface. Our Lindsay Maloney has talked with dozens of experts, family members, and survivors over the last month. She sat down with a young woman who lost her boyfriend as she gained a child who looks just like him.
As hard as it may be for Morgan Dudley, she lives with Nick's decision every day. You see, she's a mother to his child. Now, she's baby Hudson's only parent. He'll never know his dad, hold his hand, or feel his kiss. Nick Deirdrick took his life 6 months ago. And as you'll see, life continues for his loved ones, but the pain lingers.
Dad, dad, dad.
Calling out for his daddy.
Dad, 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 dad. Dad, it's hard not having Nick.
A lot has changed in 6 months.
Or he's pulling himself up, he's learned how to crawl, he says dada, you know, he's learning how to walk now. I just wish he would have waited around long enough to experience all these things because I feel like he would have made it.
Nick Deirdrick isn't here to watch his son grow.
I just don't want Hudson to ever think that it was his fault because I know it wasn't.
Nick took his life when Hudson was just 3 months old.
And that was the last thing he said to me was tell Hudson I love him.
Really grab it.
Morgan Dudley's a mom, but still a teenager. And with Nick gone, she feels alone.
I think as Nick did, a lot of the times I do feel like I'd rather not be here than try to live another day because it's hard.
Flipping through 5 years of memories is sometimes too much.
Nick was my best friend, and he was everything that made me happy. Not having him kills me every day.
She still has so many questions.
Sometimes I think to myself, like, why would he leave me? Like, why would he leave me and Hudson?
While she doesn't have answers, she's come to an understanding.
I just have to remind myself that when, he did it, he wasn't thinking that he was going to hurt people around him. He thought he was going to help us. And I'm not mad at him for that. I'm not mad at him for wanting his pain to stop.
Nick's loss is still painful, but she has a part of him that she holds close.
He's just like Nick. He's got the biggest personality. He eats like him. He's tall.
And just like his dad, he has Morgan's heart.
It makes me super happy that my son resembles him so much because he's not here, but he is here.
Those who have taken their lives have dealt with a wide range of emotions, but so do the friends and family who are left behind. I also had a chance to meet with a young woman who found her sister. She was so close to her and yet never had any idea she was in such a dark place.
She was very vivacious, very bubbly, and she'd always been like that since she was little.
Just 14 months apart, Darren and her sister Karis, known as Kiki, were often mistaken for twins.
And we did a lot of the same things. We both grew up, outdoors. We did horseback riding together.
That bond continued to college.
She was my confidant. She was my best friend.
But even she had no idea.
It's something that I would never have thought in a million years.
Darren came home from work one June day and opened Kiki's bedroom door.
And I remember looking over, and it took a second or two to register kind of what I was seeing. But she was hanging off the door.
She froze.
And I remember thinking, maybe this has just happened and we can get her down and resuscitate her.
She was gone.
I felt like I lost half of who I was. And sometimes I do still feel like there's just a chunk that's not there and won't ever really make sense, but it's something that you learn to deal with. You know, you feel like part of your identity is gone.
Darren was numb.
Siblings, they've spent pretty much their entire life with this person. And you have that relationship growing up and growing with each other that all of a sudden is taken away.
Nearly 6 years have passed. Darren still doesn't understand.
I remember thinking, I should have noticed something. You know, we were living together. I saw her every day.
She says Kiki's boyfriend broke up with her that day.
Obviously, after everything, I do sometimes think, like, what could I have seen? What could I have done differently? But at the same time, it was so out of the blue that I still now sometimes think, like, how did this happen?
A question she won't ever be able to answer.
Lindsay will be joining us in just a moment, but right now Dr. Alex Carini is here to talk about what she just witnessed, a little bit about mental illness. As you watched that piece, what was going through your mind?
Just how complicated suicide is and how often people have so little answers around suicide and how it happens, and just the enormous impact it has on communities and families and friends of those who've lost a loved one.
Let's talk about mental illness. Explain exactly what it is, what that term means.
Well, mental illness is when an individual is experiencing a cluster of symptoms, and those symptoms are creating difficulty or conflict in their lives. It could be within a relationship or at work or in a personal way. So when you get all these issues that come together and they create conflict within you, depending on what those different symptoms are, we see something around mental illness.
You deal with a younger age group.
Yes, 10 to 24.
Are you seeing an uptick?
A rise in suicides.
Sure.
We are seeing a rise in suicide and
Why do you
in
think
attempts.
that is?
You know, suicide is a very complicated issue. There's multiple factors involved, and as far as the research is concerned, we're still building the research in terms of looking at what creates these zones where people find themselves. We call them suicide zones, where people have high risks, low protective factors, and then these warning signs. And there's multiple things depending on what age group you're looking at that can create putting somebody at risk. So if you're looking at youth, and I was just seeing that with those two families, is that a loss of a relationship seems to impact youth and young adults so much. If you think about it, when a young person, the relationship they're in tends to be their everything. It's how they form their identity. It's how they see their future. And so when they lose that, sometimes they get kind of lost in that suicide zone.
There is a wide variety of mental illnesses. We're talking about depression, PTSD. There's so many.
Anxiety is a big one as well, that can create risk factors.
Does the community, the medical community, do you consider depression, do you consider anxiety a mental illness?
Yes, I mean, it's treated as such. We screen for anxiety, we screen for depression to make sure that we're getting people to the right level of care.
Dr. Alex Carini coming in from Columbia to join us tonight. Thank you so much for your time. She is going to be with us for a while. If you have any questions for her, we're giving you that opportunity throughout this hour.
Lindsay Maloney joining us in our green room with more on this. Lindsay?
Yeah, well, Ashley and Dean, Dr. Carini, like you said, will be joining me in the green room in just a moment. She'll be answering your questions about mental illness all throughout this special. All you need to do is log on to our Facebook page. We will be live throughout the hour. Again, she will be answering you guys' questions. We want you to join in the conversation. Ashley?
All right, Lindsay, thank you. And if you are watching and perhaps contemplating suicide, perhaps maybe you know someone who may be, please call this number, grab a pen, jot it down. It's 1-800-273-8255. It's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
It is a free 24/7 service offering confidential support and resources for anyone who may need it. We're digging into other mental health issues tonight.
And still to come, eating disorders. They are one of the most dangerous. And tonight, a Mount Pleasant woman explains how she stared down death every time she looked in the mirror.
I never thought of myself as suicidal, but what was I doing? I was killing myself.
There is a lot of pressure to be thin, young, pretty, perfect. So much information on diets. There's always a new workout. Then there's those viral stories, like the thigh gap one that went viral. But the fact is, in the pursuit of perfection too, many people, men and women, resort to starvation. Anorexia nervosa has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. One Mount Pleasant woman explains how her battle started with a bunch of compliments.
I was really bad there.
Looking at old photos.
Scary, scary stuff.
Donna Friedman can't help but be thankful.
I'm lucky to be alive.
You see, for nearly 3 decades,
It's horrible.
she lived a nightmare.
The disease is so ugly. It's so ugly.
It was 1983 when hit pop singer Karen Carpenter passed away. Heart failure killed her, caused by the eating disorder anorexia nervosa. Friedman was a college student.
The interesting thing, I think, for me is that I always wanted to be better. Like, I didn't want to be like that.
But she was. The once vivacious, happy, and healthy girl.
I looked like I had the picture-perfect world. But I was miserable inside.
Now struggling to survive.
I had gained weight in college, and I had tonsillitis really bad, and they recommended that I get my tonsils taken out. So during that process, I lost a bunch of weight, and I just came back to school, and people were like, "Oh my God, you look so great, oh my goodness." And that for me was just, the snowball began to roll.
At her lowest, Friedman weighed 68 pounds. She was in and out of hospitals and different treatment programs for years. She'd improve and then relapse. The cycle, she says, seemed endless.
It's a slow suicide. Yeah. It is. I mean, it's not, I never thought of myself as suicidal, but what was I doing? I was killing myself.
Over the years, Friedman learned to truly recover, she needed to fully understand her genetics, personality, and anxiety. Her battle ended 23 years after it started.
I think it'll always be with me. I think the great part about recovery is that you get further and further away from the illness, but you still have to be on top of it.
Which is why she's still in therapy. This survivor now uses her story to help others. Friedman helped launch a local foundation for those suffering with the disease. The clinic at MUSC is a family-based program geared to ages 8 to 24.
Our pediatricians and our parents know what to look for if they are seeing changes in behavior, because I do think we've just nipped into this, and I think that there's much more work to be done.
33 years after the death of Karen Carpenter, Friedman says awareness of eating disorders has improved greatly. But society's craving for that perfect body today is stronger than ever.
I really don't think that the general population views it as truly a disease.
Which is why she's now made it her mission to bring hope and healing to others with her same struggle.
We just need to keep the conversation going, and because it is impacting so many people, and in this community especially.
The Friedman Center is the only clinic in Charleston specializing in eating disorders. It's only been open since June, less than a year, but they're already seeing the impact they're having on the community.
Family-based treatment has the most empirical support for its use with adolescents with eating disorders, particularly anorexia. And when people get early intervention and effective treatment, their chances of recovery are really pretty good.
If you or someone you know needs help with an eating disorder, contact the Friedman Center for Eating Disorders. That information is on your screen now. You can also find additional information posted on our website. We have it for you there, abcnews4.com.
I've seen people at the very beginning of their addiction, and I've seen people, close to the end of it. So, if you're still breathing, there's still a chance to get help. And there are a lot of resources in the community that help with addiction.
Using resources like the Veterans Hospital is exactly what this next man did. He battled with drug and alcohol addiction for years, nearly drove him to take his life, quite literally, as you'll find out. Now he's driven to help others from behind the wheel. ABC News 4's Tensa Spencer has his story.
Joe Tolles had a plan.
The suicidal issues came up probably around the 6th of April, 2003.
To take his life.
I was going to get my brother's car, and Highway 61's got some beautiful oak trees right on the side, and I was going to just take my seatbelt off, and that was it.
But it wasn't the end Tolles expected.
I was so messed up, I couldn't even do that good. I chickened out. I had my brother's car, sped up, and just pulled off on the side of the road sobbing.
It was during a drug binge 9 days later that proved to be the wake-up call he needed.
In my heart, I knew then that God, who I knew from my childhood, was telling me, you got to change, or you're either going to be crippled or dead.
The Air Force veteran checked into the VA hospital and was taken to the psychiatric ward where he was given a choice and a chance at a better life.
One of the social workers came in and said, do you want to go into treatment and housing? And I said, sure. You know, I mean, I needed something. Didn't know what, but I needed something. Went out to Veteran Villas, and where my life started over. All right, I'm not going to be the chauffeur. Somebody sit up front with me.
A life that included helping others who are where he once dwelled.
Yeah, I feel like I'm empathetic, you know, because of the fact that I was there, you know. And I can't fix anybody. I can't tell them what to do, but I can show them what I did. You know, and if they want to follow it, they can follow it, but they got to do it their way. But I can show them it works. You're doing good, doing good.
These days, Tolles is a true walking testimony to what the power of divine intervention and resources can do.
It's made me who I am. You know, it took me from way down at the bottom of the Sea of Despair. God reached down, picked me up from the Sea of Despair, put me on the beach. The VA Chesapeake Health Education Program is giving me what I've got now. That's my buddy.
That would be a renewed relationship with his family.
My granddaughter's never seen me drink or do drugs, which is really cool to know, and that I'm part of her life.
Building stronger family bonds. His cup now runneth over.
Homeless to home full, and hopeless to hopeful. Well, you got a lot of lessons and a lot of fulls.
That was Tessa Spencer reporting tonight. Now, the Ralph Johnson Veterans Hospital has been a resource in the Lowcountry for years. They have experience in dealing with veterans who struggle making that transition back to civilized life. Now, Dr. Mark DeSantis is the suicide prevention coordinator at the hospital. He says a study done by the VA in 2012 showed the numbers of veteran suicides went down when they received VA care. That number, though, increases without it.
We've actually had some of our veterans come back to us and state that if it wasn't for what we've been able to do with them, they might have taken their life.
From 2007 to 2016, the Veterans Crisis Hotline has saved somewhere in the neighborhood of 68,000 vets. The number on your screen is for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. It's 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. And for the Veterans Line, just press 1. For additional information, you can go to our website at abcnews4.com.
Mental illness and suicide can impact your loved ones, and stories of hope and survival can make a difference in someone else's life.
I keep going back to hearing my mom's reaction of my attempt and not wanting to do that to her again.
Not even 2 hours after I posted my story, I got a Facebook message from a mom in my hometown saying, "You just saved a kid's life."
Welcome back to our coverage of mental illness beneath the surface. This conversation in our newsroom began really last September. That's when I first met Emily Torchiana. To understand why we are doing what we are doing today is to understand Emily's story.
Dear Mom and Dad, I am so sorry, but I really can't do this anymore.
If you didn't know, you would never know.
I have felt trapped for so long, and I don't want to feel this way anymore.
She hid it all.
There is nothing you could have done. I can't even help myself.
Did her best to blend in.
I now hate myself as much as everyone tells me that they hate me.
Until the pain became too much.
I'm sorry, and I love you all. Emily.
Now, everyone knows.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to everyone today.
And Emily Torchiana wouldn't have it any other way.
All I remember is waking up to my older brother banging on the door and actually broke down my door as I was passed out in my own vomit from trying to commit suicide. How could you ever do this? Like, we had no idea any of this was happening. Why wouldn't you tell us?
The trouble began her freshman year in high school. She was cyberbullied.
And the rumors were all about me being, they would call me a slut, a whore, saying I was sleeping around with people. And then they'd be like, no one likes a girl like that. No one likes you. But I'm very religious and I'm saving sex for marriage. And at that point, I think I'd only kissed like 2 boys, maybe. And so it was just it was so far from the truth.
It's continued into her sophomore year. The damage was done. The final nail, a text message. Her best friend had died of brain cancer.
When she passed away, that was kind of when I was like, I really don't want to be here anymore. I've tried everything and there's no really point to live. And just remember looking at myself, feeling so ashamed and feeling so badly about myself and just being like, this is it. I don't want to wake up.
21 years old.
Those people that I had known since I was 4 years old writing horrible stuff about me.
5 years removed from her suicide attempt.
And I looked up and actually saw this message.
Emily now speaks freely about being a survivor.
And I'm not sharing my story with people to get like compliments or anything like, look how strong you are. That's not what I'm looking for, but I'm looking for the people that are currently struggling and currently feeling like they can't reach out to anyone and hoping that I can help them in some way. Put your hand over your heart, and if you feel that heartbeat, that's your purpose. When you wake up in the morning and you feel your heartbeat, you know that you are here for a reason and that this world would literally be not the same without you.
Hey, Sierra. Good, how are you?
Courageous in her words, committed to her conviction. Emily is inspiring others to live.
Prior to hearing you speak today, I've had constant suicidal thoughts and was planning on acting on them this week. I no longer feel alone, and I reached out to my parents right after I heard you talk. Thank you. Thank you for saving my life. I don't think people realize that sometimes like one small comment can like affect someone so negatively.
Emily's reach is not limited to speeches. She recently produced a 2-minute video.
I'm still breathing.
Her hope is to shatter the mental health stigma.
My dad, after I made the video, texted me saying, I want you to know you're my hero. And I think I used to see myself as a background character in other people's lives. But now I see myself as my own character in my own story.
Already a bestseller.
And I'm so happy that my older brother didn't have to walk in and see my dead body on the ground rather than seeing that I'm able to recover.
With so many chapters left to write.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you letting me speak and for you guys listening. It means a lot. Thank you.
Emily continues to speak to various groups, mostly schools. At that time, she also had an idea for a website, a place for those struggling to open up and share their stories. Lindsay Malone again joining us and picks up that part of the story.
Yeah, well, Dean, Emily said she was floored when she found out just how many people suffered in silence just like her. It came to head when she would speak at these groups, and one after another, total strangers would come up to her and say, I get it. I feel that same way. And from that experience, the website, The Invisible Illnesses, was born.
She calls it The Invisible Illness.
You could be going to class, you could be hanging out with friends and dealing with all these issues inside, but they're not seen.
Her website, a place to open up without judgment.
I'm Caroline Johnson. I'm 22.
I'm Davion Young. I'm 20.
I'm Ross Keller. I'm 21 years old, and this is my story.
Names now with a voice, all thanks to Emily Torchiana.
My story is giving them the platform to also feel comfortable sharing.
I was hurting. I was hurting more than I ever had.
You feel the mental block in your head just stopping you.
I was just tired of like having to get up and live life, a life that I didn't want to live.
More than 100 people have logged in to share their stories.
It was like a good day overall. Like I've been hanging out with my roommate and one of my other friends all day and all night, and then kind of like, I kind of had the moment of like, well, now's as good time as any. Something I've been thinking about for a while.
I was taught by my father that boys don't cry, and also boys can't like other boys.
I picked up a knife and I went into my room and I sat there and just contemplated of what I should do.
But each of them made that split-second choice to live.
It's that moment of like regret that you would get immediately. Like immediately I was like, oh no, what have I done?
I'm about 1:30 in the morning I called my dad and put down the knife. The first words came out of my mouth was, "I need help."
Now, out of the darkest place, they try to be light for others.
I know it's not easy, but once you do take that step to get help, you're on the right path and you will see a future.
Their past experiences are a reminder. There's still a lot of life to live.
I feel hopeful. I feel very optimistic. I do have moments throughout the day where I feel a little down, but knowing that I have more support than I ever have, that makes me feel great.
During all of it, I forgot to love myself first before anything else. I've really taken the time in the past year to learn to love myself.
Yeah, this is the first time in a long time I've been excited about the future. It is nerve-wracking, and there are so many unknowns, but I'm actually looking forward to continuing life.
That situation I witnessed triggered something deep inside of me.
For Torchiana, a survivor herself, her own therapy has been creating this website.
I know that my purpose is to hopefully help others know that they have worth, know that they're here for a reason, and know that this world would not be the same if they weren't in it.
All right, welcome back, Lindsay. Emily back on the set with us right now. Talk about what this journey has been like, really since the first time you and I met to where we sit right here today.
Well, thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it. So when I last saw you, I had this idea called The Invisible Illnesses, because I knew when I shared my story with other people at different schools and events and conferences, I gained so much from that, learning that so many people could relate to my story. Not that they were cyberbullied or had depression, but they had the same feelings of feeling alone, isolated, whether they had an eating disorder, bipolar disorder, whatever you can name. So that's when I got the idea for it. Why not have other people have a platform to share their stories, to help others silently suffering know they're not alone.
And they're not alone. I mean, you've seen, people constantly coming up to you, and what kind of response have you had from that website?
I received an amazing response. I received messages saying that, hey, I read this story about this person and now I'm seeking help, or hey, I've had these exact same feelings and I remember feeling weird or different and I don't feel that way anymore. So there's been over 125,000 views on the website since it launched in October, and on the Facebook there's been over 200,000 views. And this was just all an idea that I brought to my friend Jesse, who is the photographer.
Yeah, Jesse should get some love here.
Yeah, Jesse Volk does a lot. And without the pictures, you can't see the faces, because these are people you see in your daily life, people that you work with, people you go to school with, and seeing their faces and seeing how normal they look really helps to reduce the stigma, seeing people that are so normal feeling as crazy or different. It helps.
Have you been surprised at the number of people who have been willing to open up and share their stories?
Yes.
Because it's been incredible.
So at first, it definitely was a slow start. I had a handful of people reach out, but I've noticed with each story that I share, if someone shares about bipolar disorder, I'll have 5 more people reach out about their bipolar disorder. So with each person that's feeling comfortable to open up, there's 5 more people opening up. And it's hard to find boys, I've noticed. Males tend to hide their emotions more, which goes with the stigma as well. But
we do.
They do. But hopefully with the Invisible Illnesses, each time a guy is sharing his story, more guys reach out, because I want it to show that mental illness doesn't discriminate against gender, age, race. It affects everyone.
I know Ross had said, and this was really powerful, he said within 2 hours of posting his story, he had a mom say, "You just saved a kid's life." Is that the kind of reaction that you've imagined or that you hope for?
Yeah, so when I started speaking, I started getting messages like that, and it was really crazy to receive, knowing that my story could impact someone so positively and help them. And that's what's the cool thing about the Invisible Illnesses. I'm able to see the same things happen for these people sharing. They're finally getting to have the feeling I've had to help other people as well.
Thanks for opening up.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for sharing. Making a huge difference. Again, if you are watching or contemplating suicide, if you know someone, there's a number to call right there on the screen.